Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out to Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Alistair Main, Billy Highvolt, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As the Earth, Chow Yun Cat, Dank, Dave Rakia Gafford, David Wayne Foster, Edwin Johnson, Erwin Jennisons, Felix Hung, Fireball X, God Rockin', Henrik86, Jeronism, Joshua Balsimo, Kirsten Smith, Liam Nedrick, Life is Short, Matt, Missouri Bear, new Patreon. Thank you very much for joining us, Missouri Bear. Thank you very much for your support. Nagara, Naibai, Guitar Craig, Reinhardt, Renee, Sally Ballis, Silver Umbrella, Skeptic936, Texas Mike, The Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock App, theflatearthchannel.com, Tina Baker, and Tom Wilkins. So a massive shout out of appreciation to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now we are joined by a few people in both Discord and G+. I say Discord, is anybody actually in Discord? No, in the Ballbusters and aftershow parts, but not in the actual live stream bit. But nevertheless, we have got a few people here, including Sleeping Warrior, 10th Man, and Paul. So I'll raise the mic on them, and you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for the first live show.
Him out has based everything on that one begging the question fallacy right there. The presumption of it all.
Okay, I'll get you some. Hang on. My hands are dirty. Hang on, I'll have to put myself on mute.
Yeah.
Nobody in Discord.
Not yet, huh?
No. Well, there's three of you. It's only noteworthy because it's usually the other way around. There's nobody in Hangouts and there's 10 people in Discord all waiting.
Well, Sleeping Warrior's not at the mic, and Paul just stepped away for a minute.
That's because I told him to join me in the Hangout when I went and took my kid to nursery.
Oh, I see. You sound much better, but you still got a tinge of it, right?
Oh yeah, I'm 50% better.
Good.
Yesterday was deeply unpleasant. All of the children have got it vomiting all over us. It wasn't much fun.
Oh, no.
So was it the flu, not bronchitis or something? Is that what you guys are fighting?
I don't know what it was. All I know is that I walked in, saw my wife cuddling my eldest, and then heard a noise, came back in, and she was covered from top to toe in vomit.
Definitely sounds like the flu.
And then later that day, the same thing happened to me. Fun.
Good to have parents to take care of you.
Well, I was impressed with my wife because she's quite squeamish, generally speaking, with things like that. But she was just nothing but sympathetic. She's obviously go on.
I don't know if you've had this. There's this commercial here in the U.S. I don't know if you've seen it there in the U.K., but it's a guy standing at the door. He's all messed up, and he says, "Michael," I was like, "I am really sick today." I was like, "I don't think I can come into work. You know, I'm just miserable." And the camera pans, and it's the toddler. And I thought, that's about the truth, because a parent, even though they're sick, can't call in sick.
Right, I see. Yeah.
I went and watched Sleeping Warriors short, what is it, 1 minute, 9 second video? The life of a Glober. This topic, did you see that one with the skateboarder?
Rollerblader.
Rollerblader, sorry.
Yeah, it's funny.
So I posted a remark on it. So I said, great comparison, Sleeping Warrior. And they still troll rather than answer the housekeeping question. So then after that, a guy named Common Sense Criticism started to dialogue with me, and we went up to, I woke up to the 34th message this morning and sent him a 35th message. It's pretty interesting. I used just what I've learned here on the show, 8 housekeeping questions, but it's a fun read if any of you want to go see the back and forth I had with them.
You got it? Have you got it up?
Paul could, if Paul wants to pull it up and just go and hit each one, it's a good flow.
Is it in Master B?
No, it's on YouTube on Sleeping Warriors channel. Under the comments, you'll see it. You'll see 10th Man, and then you'll see 35. So it's just him and I, back and forth. I thought we were going to get somewhere, but
I was gonna say it'd be better if you could read them out, but you've nominated Paul for some reason.
well, if he puts it on the screen, I could read it out.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that way it's not just me reading.
Oh, I see.
He quoted Bob from Globebusters and all kinds of stuff.
Okay, tell me which video it was again.
It's the life of a Glober in this topic, I believe it's called.
Okay, I'm trying to find it, so bear with me.
It should be the last one, the newest one.
It's in the Discord live stream too.
How did it get there? Oh, you mean the actual video to be played?
Yeah, the link for Sleeping Warriors video.
Yeah, gotcha.
So it's in. You said it's in the comments, right? Down at the bottom of the video.
Yeah, just look for my icon. 10th Man Rising.
Looks like it might be far down in there because I don't see it.
Well,
oh, there it is. 10th Man Rising. There it is.
Yeah, go ahead and click all the read mores so that we can just flow through it before we start.
We'll read more. It's okay.
Yeah, just go down, hit them all, and then.
While I'm doing this, I came across a video that Spur Schema would like, and anybody that questions gas pressure at 14.7, there's a guy talking about that and how you can actually do it yourself and calculate it, not even having to use a vacuum chamber. It's actually really good.
Cool. Should I start, Nathan? I'll wait for Nathan. Hello.
Yeah, it's all up on screen.
Okay, you want me to go ahead and start then?
Yeah.
All right, so I watched the short video from Sleeping Warrior, said, great comparison, Sleeping Warrior, and they still troll rather than answer the housekeeping questions. Then I get this reply from Common Sense Criticism. There are no answers for flatards we'll accept, so why bother? If your 5th grade teacher couldn't teach you, what makes us think will be able to. Which I responded, common sense criticism, and you proved my point with my 5th grade teacher comment. And then he responded, there's no proof that a flat tard will, stop moving here. There's no proof that a flat tard will accept. That's why you guys have to say all images of the earth are fake with no evidence that they are. And it's just one example of many. You're not looking for truth. You're looking to be in a club of like-minded nitwits, and FV is your club. Common sense criticism, I responded to him and said, you never answered my 8 housekeeping questions, just ad homs about 5th grade teacher. Here's, and scroll. Wow, how much did you scroll? Okay, there we go. All right, and then he responded, what housekeeping questions? Because I just referred to him, and he now says, oh, what housekeeping questions? And then so I sent him a link to your channel, Flat Earth Debate Show. Give me timestamps. I'm not watching an hour-long show from Nathan Oakley just to pick out some questions. He literally makes me want to punch puppies. If you give me timestamps, I'll gladly make a video answering them, and I'll tell you when it's uploaded. I said 1:45 start. Go up, Paul, on the screen. I'll let you know when the video's up, he replied. Then he went, I'm not hearing specific housekeeping questions, just a bunch of people who say everything is fake and have any answers that actually explain 3rd grade questions they're asking. But I'll do a video answering as many as I can stomach. Seriously, it wouldn't make me the slightest bit sad if Nathan Oakley was hit by a bus. He is insufferable. I responded, cool. Can't wait to see your evidence for the 8 questions. Also, I'll make a video explaining the stuff. You actually watch it. Also, at the end of the video, I'll ask you some housekeeping questions, meaning he's going to ask me some that you need to answer in comment of that video. Deal? Question mark. If you don't, I'll assume that you admit that I'm correct, and you have basically admitted that Earth is a globe, and I'll make a video about that as well. Cool? Scroll up, please. Okay. Then he came back. I guess he had a little thought about it. Define evidence, because when I show clips of videos of experiments or tell you the formulas and equations for this stuff, you're just going to say it's fake, wrong, something because you can't understand it. I'm not going to personally do a bunch of experiments that you won't watch, won't understand, and will just say is fake or some other stupid shit. So I'll explain why things are the way they are. I'll show videos that illustrate things like gravity, etc. Not that I think you'll actually learn anything or that you'll even watch it, but it's the content that's always the good thing for my channel. Then he says, one more thing. What do you base your flat Earth belief on? The Bible or just a lack of scientific knowledge? Scroll up, please. Okay. Then I responded, scientific method evidence, because he called it knowledge. So I said, scientific method evidence, dependent variable, independent variable, and control variables. Science is a study of the natural world to determine cause and effect. Your hypothesis is a presumed cause, will be validated or nullified. No begging the question or mathematical arguments. Empirical evidence, observable, testable, repeatable. So basically, he responds, you want me to do experiments demonstrating Earth on Earth. That's what I figured. Very interesting. How about this? Since the burden of proof is on you, so burden of proof reversal fallacy starts out. How about you prove the flat Earth using the same method? First, I want scientific experiment proving the dome. Then I'd like a photo of the flat Earth. I'd like proof of the projector that displays the sun, moon, and stars, the dome as well. You make the video and we can talk. Scroll up, please. Okay. Lack of empirical scientific evidence, not, hang on, scroll down one. I think I missed one. We can talk. Oh, okay. So this is me answering something else here. Lack of empirical scientific evidence, not knowledge. That's where I make the distinction. And yes, I am a Christian and fully agree with the geocentric biblical cosmology as recorded in Genesis. Then I said, actually, the Earth is obviously and observably flat and stationary. The burden of proof of rotation is on you, and gas pressure next to a vacuum without a container is also on you, since that is what the heliocentric model states. So if you can demonstrate 2 of the 8 housekeeping questions via the scientific method, then that will be a good start. Scroll up, please. All right. So he responds, okay, do a scientific experiment showing that Jesus existed, was resurrected, and then ascended to heaven. Also prove heaven exists while you're at it. I want scientific experiment, independent variable, and all that. Cool? He says, and then the heliocentric model states nothing of the sort. This is him still talking. We don't live in a pressurized gas system, lame-o. We have atmospheric pressure. That's a totally different thing. If you listen to Nathan Oakley a little less and listen to people who know things a little more, you'd probably know that. And then he said, also ask Bob at Globebusters about the rotation of the Earth. Scroll up, please. So he brings Bob at Globebusters in at this point. Then I say, Jesus and his resurrection would fall under valid evidence or the lack thereof, like in a court of law. Cannot do scientific method on historical events. Surprise, you didn't know that. Sounds like you don't understand what the scientific method is. You must manipulate the independent variable to determine the cause for the effect. P.S. Bob at Globebusters, really? You need him to prove the Earth's presumed rotation? Don't you have your own evidence? And then I said, you said it's pressurized gas system. Actually, he said atmospheric, but same thing. You can't have gas pressure without a container. Oh, by the way, the heliocentric model is an open system, not closed. You not even know your own arguments. I responded. Okay. Why would I come up with evidence when he did such a good job? So he's answering me now. I'm not buying a $20,000 gyroscope to prove rotation to a bunch of science class flunkies. So you're saying you don't have any proof that Jesus existed, was resurrected, and ascended to heaven aside from the Bible, a book that said every animal got on the boat and people lived to be 900 years old, resurrections, unicorns, etc. So now he's changing the subject and bringing in ad homs and clearly stuck unicorns in there. That's a book you base your life on, question mark, and yet you don't believe scientists who have studied the globe, space, their entire lives, lame-o. This is precisely what I expected. I do know my arguments. This is him responding still. You morons keep saying gas pressure without a container. Why do you focus on the container? Because you think there's a big glass dome above us? There isn't. And we don't live in a pressurized gas system. We have atmospheric pressure, not pressurized gas. Do you know your model? So he's back at me. Then I responded, I don't have a model and make no claims of one. Your side of the debate states the vacuum of space next to the Earth's atmosphere without the necessary antecedent of a container. Please demonstrate how you can have gas pressure next to a vacuum without the necessary antecedent, or admit you can't. Scroll up. Okay. So he responds, the Earth is a demonstration of that. You're intentionally not understanding the difference between pressurized gas, which is 99% cases requires a container, and atmospheric pressure with the gradient. Look up at the atmospheric pressure and try to wrap your head around it. Look up again, right? That's what they all say. There isn't pressure next to a vacuum. The gradient means that by the time it gets away from there, like 300 miles or so, it isn't any pressure. It's like there's 14.7 psi, and then bam, zero pressure. It's a gradient. It goes from 14.7 psi all the way down to 10 to the minus 17 torr over hundreds of miles. If there was a dome, Nathan Oakley's favorite saying would mean that all the air would normalize, because that's what the 2LTD actually means, second law of thermodynamics. In regards to entropy, is a closed system like we have. If there was a dome, all the air would just spread out evenly. When you climb Mount Everest, in reality, what do you need to keep you from dying, an oxygen tank. Why is that? Because the air is so thin and because the atmospheric pressure gradient. It's not that complicated, or this isn't as complicated as flat-earthers make it to be, and doesn't need scientific experiment if you have 10 brain cells to think about it. Then I responded, in your rebuttal, you considered Earth. Are you considering Earth with a dynamic or static system? Where are the gases produced, ground level or 20,000 foot elevation? Question mark. I know we have a gradient pressure higher, but you cannot have a gradient pressure without the gas pressure in the first place. So please demonstrate it next to a vacuum. Scroll, please. Okay, right there. Then he responded, man, look up atmospheric pressure, gravity. Yes, it's real. Creates the gradient. When you're at sea level, all the air above you is pressing down on you. When you increase your elevation, there's less air above you, hence less pressure. Atmospheric pressure and pressurized gas are two different things. This is breaking my long-held rule where I don't argue with children, Bible literates, or very stupid people. None of them argue from a position of logic, knowledge, and therefore are wasting my time because they're literally incapable of learning. Which I respond, if you believe Earth moved under the $20,000 gyro, then Earth would move underneath an airplane, hot air balloon, and helicopter, but it doesn't. So no Earth rotation. So obviously that was an answer for the previous statement. The Earth didn't rotate underneath the gyroscope, he says. Lamo. The helicopter and the balloon thing is easy. Look up what reference frames are. The altitudes that balloons and helicopters operate is basically the same speed as the surface of the Earth. The air therein is also moving with the Earth, and they're essentially moving with the Earth. Therefore, they wouldn't. Can you read more, Paul? Therefore, they wouldn't see the planet moving underneath them. I'm covered a lot of this in my videos. You should watch them. You won't, but you should. I explain a lot of this stuff. Scroll up, please. Okay. The evidence for Jesus Christ's death, burial, and resurrection from both hostile and friendly eyewitness testimony, historically sound. What's your constant attack on Jesus' resurrection have to do with the nature of our Earth? The scientific method and logical arguments is all I need to prove the Earth is not rotating. Question for you are, can you read more? I'm responding to is, no, above that, Paul. Just read more above that. Question for you is, are you an atheist? So then I respond, so what about northeast and south winds? The Earth is rotating west to east, question mark. And please demonstrate the atmosphere is rotating as one. No begging the question, here with me, gas pressure in every direction, and unlike liquids, they don't bond. Sorry to break it to you, but all you got is pseudoscience, not science. First prove the Earth's rotation, then we can talk about the atmosphere presupposing equals begging the question fallacy. Then he says, nah, if you're not getting it already, there's nothing I can say that'll educate you on this. You already made up your mind. I should have stopped when you said you were a biblical flat earther. Those are the hardest to educate because they're not based on, it's not based on a lack of knowledge. It's based deeply held beliefs in Bronze Age myths. So peace, I'm out. We're almost done. Scroll up. Okay, hang on. All right. So I said, sorry to hear that. Did you not read where I said just the scientific method for evidence and logic and reason will be my only criteria? Just to keep it fair, I won't evoke God or the Bible at all. Just legit science will do for me. Oh well, best wishes for your journey through life if I don't hear back from you. Peace.
You say the atmosphere was a begging the question fallacy. Did I hear that correctly?
I said that him saying that the Earth was moving as one with the atmosphere, I need that to be proven first.
No, that's fine. I couldn't. Yeah. Okay. So he said it 3 times, but you didn't address it. He said gas pressure is not the same as atmospheric pressure. They're different things. Well,
Which they're not.
Not what? Different or not the same?
Well, they're not different things. They're the same.
They are the same, yeah.
They're the
Atmospheric.
same. Yeah.
Atmospheric is simply a redefinition of a term.
Well, no. There's 2 words in there: atmo, air, and sphere, fundy presupposition. So the reason I asked you is because I was waiting for it to get addressed, but it didn't, and I thought I heard it addressed as in atmosphere is a begging the question fallacy, which it is. It's assuming that there's an air around a sphere. That it is in hold on. In most simplistic terms, it's a begging the question fallacy because it's saying air isn't gas pressure, it's air stuck to the outside of a sphere. So we have gas pressure. The fact that it's been ingrained in us, all of us, including Quantum Eraser, as the way we describe the air out there. Well, that is by our and their definition called atmo, air, sphere, fundy presupposition. So therefore, it needs to start getting, it's starting to creep in that they're getting around this, how do you have gas pressure without a container? Oh, well, we don't have gas pressure, we have atmosphere. No, that's a fundy presupposition that you've got gas pressure around a sphere. So they're automatically into begging the question with their own air that they breathe when they talk about the air that they breathe. And I want to draw a stop to it. We have air pressure. Atmosphere is merely a fundy presupposition attached to the word air.
It's also a redefinition.
Yeah,
he said atmospheric pressure.
Say again, Fuzzy Ewok?
Atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure is still pressure, whether it's on a sphere or not. It's still pressure, right?
Well, atmospheric pressure means atmo, air, sphere, fundy presupposition, pressure. So air, sphere, presupposition, pressure.
No,
that's what they're saying.
I need to correct you on that. Atmospheric pressure is defined its mass over little g in the volume. That's the definition. That's the redefinition of terms. It's very specific.
So it's got g in it. So hold on. So it's two presuppositions then. G is based on your fundy presupposition of spheres. So I'm right. But
it's defined as the weight of the air.
But it's more.
Here, let's walk.
It's more layered.
It's
more layered because you've got G also weaseled into atmosphere. So not only the presupposition of gas around a sphere, but with G as a factor. So yeah, a whole nother level of begging the question then.
Here, look, real quick, let's walk through this. Atmo, a combining form of air. Air, the invisible gaseous substance surrounding Earth, a mixture mainly of oxygen and nitrogen. Gaseous, relating to or having the characteristics of a what? Gas. There you go.
Yeah, but the second one you read out... Hold on. The second one you read out made it explicit that it's specifically to do with a fundy presupposition of a sphere Earth. Surrounding, it said.
Yeah, the visible surrounding, yes.
Right,
yeah,
well,
exactly.
So we've got gas surrounding. Well, how does it surround? Oh, because it's based on a fundy presupposition that it's going to be wrapped around a sphere. So we've got to stamp out this atmosphere bullshit. It's just a begging the question fallacy, utilised in grammatical or verbal terms to weasel in G and beg the question of a sphere. That's all it's for. We have air. It's at pressure.
Well, that's where I initially said, I only want the scientific method, and I explained what it was. That's the only evidence I'll accept from you. And then as he was going and I was going back and forth, he brought up the atmosphere, which I already know what he was doing there, and with the word atmo and sphere. And rather than get stuck on that, I doubled down and said, just stick to the scientific method. That's all I'm asking for. But then he was avoiding that, because he wanted to show videos. He wanted to show mathematical calculations. So I had already covered with him the criteria is the independent variable that you must manipulate. So I didn't feel at that point I should say, oh, you used the word atmosphere. I didn't want to get stuck there. Because I already told him I'm only going to accept the
I'm not criticising it.
method.
It's just one of those, it's a useful opportunity for me to make the point as opposed to a criticism. Don't take it the wrong way.
No, I wasn't, but I see your point now. But, you know, when you're doing this back and forth text, and I'm just trying to get him to dialogue, not to run away, which he ended up running away at the end anyway, when he sounded like, if I do this, I'm going to air it on my channel. And are you cool with that? You can accept the challenge. And he's the one who ran away.
Right. Yeah, he conceded at the end that he's just going to give up.
Yeah, and he blamed it on the biblical view of the book of Genesis when I said I wouldn't use any of that.
I counted at least half a dozen ad homs. You know, it was a pretty base level, I'm right, you're wrong, and therefore I can demean you in any way I see fit and deem your time less valuable than mine. Oh, I should have given up when. Oh, right. Oh, well, my bad for engaging you in conversation, Mr. Total Stranger.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, Paul Hall, Sleeping Warrior, Chocolate Saiyan, and Arwin in G+. Very good to have you all.
Hey.
Hello. Good morning.
And we've also got a fair few people in Discord as well, so welcome to everyone on the Discord server. Hello.
Morning. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Nice to hear a little bit of interaction from the Discord server. Welcome.
Yeah, it's not been bad recently, won't lie. Any signs of Earth curvature?
Not from Reading.
Not from Barcelona.
This is a fantastic segue into Zhen Garcia. Zhen Garcia, if you're not familiar with him, he put out a challenge for anyone that could demonstrate that either there was measurable curvature or Earth was turning at a rate of more than 100 miles an hour. Not 1,000 miles an hour, just 100 will do. If you could prove that we were moving at more than 100 miles an hour, he'd pay somebody £15,000 or dollars. Somebody claimed the money, put the numbers into a computer of some kind, modeled it, and claimed the money. It went to court. It didn't go in the guy's favor. Zhen Garcia was successful at successfully pointing out that he hadn't complied with the requirement to prove curve. Putting it into a computer wasn't proving curve. The guy didn't accept the judge's decision. He appealed it for a first time, and that was rejected. He appealed it for a second time, and the second time was rejected, and then all avenues of appeal were exhausted. Zhen Garcia kept his money, and what we can learn from this is that if there is curvature, you can't measure it, or it just doesn't exist. And alternatively, ballers will claim victory no matter how shit their evidence is. So if somebody's going to put numbers into a computer and reify some model, that's not going to wash in court. So it doesn't prove Zhen Garcia does not prove that the Earth's flat. But what he does demonstrate is that reifying a model isn't going to win you in court. And ballers will claim victory no matter what happens. They'll claim victory at all costs. And ultimately, he got a decent judge. And the judge said that's not proving that the Earth's curved. So shout out to Zhen Garcia. If you haven't checked his channel out, go and look on his channel. It's really good.
I want to echo that. Massive shout out to Zen, because now that the point of, the end, all avenues of appeal have been exhausted. So that's it. He's ended that little time of presumably a high stress time in his life, and he's fought it and he's won. Good for you, Zen. Good for you. You're proving Earth's flat and you're standing your ground. Dicks come along like they do here and present their reified models as proof of Earth curvature. It's gone through the court system and it doesn't wash. No one's proving Earth curve with your reified models and your mathematics. It lost.
And just to contrast it with the most famous disagreement in this topic, when Rowbotham did his Bedford levels experiment or his observation with telescopes, and then there was the fallout between John, what was his name now? John Hanson, or I can't remember his name now. There was two guys that had a fallout. One was called Wallace, and the other guy was called Hanford or something like that. And one of them ended up going to jail because one of them claimed victory. The baller claimed victory based on the effects of refraction. Hanford or whatever his name was now, I can't remember his name. He said you can't prove that the light's bending. This is just a just so story. And the judge agreed with the ball earther on that occasion. And Hanford, I think his name was, ended up in jail because he just simply couldn't accept that the guy was anything other than dishonest. And he ended up in jail. And the ballers like to tell us about that because Wallace ended up being victorious because he was able to successfully argue that bendy light was the key. And the judge agreed with him on that occasion. Well, this time it's gone in the favour of our side, which say that you can't reify curvature. So look into the Bedford levels experiment if you want to read more about a really good or a detailed disagreement that ended up in one of the guys going to jail, because it is quite interesting.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No. Any ballers?
Sticks in the ground.
That does axial rotation, does it?
Yeah. They
How?
think so.
No.
How does sticks in the ground prove axial rotation?
Because of the sun angle and
No.
the stars are moving, right? So yeah.
They're
I know
measuring.
it's nonsense.
They're measuring presupposed radius.
I know.
That's not rotation though.
Well, if you go with all those presuppositions, then it's only naturally concludable that the Earth rotates underneath the stars. So that's how that works
Not really.
for them.
No, not really. The original presupposition from Aristarchus is that you've got one physical body obscuring another physical body, and it's a shadow that's caused as a direct result of that. And in that presupposition, Earth is a physical body that can obscure another physical body. That's it. So he's making a presupposition of a sphere Earth. Then you go on to say, well, how big is this sphere Earth? And that's where you get Aristophanes. How do you say his name? Eratosthenes. I can never say it correctly. I'm sure everyone's in the same boat. Anyway, that's where you get the measuring of the presupposed sphere radius by way of the sun and its trajectory. But that at no point does that take you to the presupposition of Earth rotation.
No, but the rotating presupposition comes from that the globe of the heavens, the stars, rotate around the apparent sphere that it forms around the presumed ball Earth.
So it doesn't come from sticks in the ground then, no?
Right.
Say no.
I should say star rotation.
Fair enough. Star rotation. You won't say no, I was just wrong, but that's fine.
I did.
Okay, fair enough. Good on you. Got a totally different attitude on you today, I can tell already, Arwin.
Yeah.
So let's just be clear. Stars don't prove axial rotation, guys. We see two rotation points in the sky. It doesn't mean that we're on an axis rotating. It means that the sky appears to be turning like two whirlpools. If there was two vortexes in the sea, and you wouldn't claim that the Earth was turning just because there's two vortexes near each other. Well, that's the claim that they make, and we think it's nonsense.
However, if you want to see a last-ditch attempt to defend the presupposition of antipodal travel when observing the star rotations that are above us, then check out the JLB after show on Nathan Oakley channel. If you're watching this live, my second channel, Nathan Oakley, is linked below in the info box. And show 1049, the last hour of the show, literally the entire hour, is John Le Bon trying to beg the question of antipodal travel. In other words, to summarise this, when travelling out to the horizon on a flat plane, which you observe no curvature during this travel, you just observe a flat plane below you. However, if you assume that when you arrive at your destination, you're now antipodal from where you began, you can start making observations of the stars above you with the presupposition that the stars that were above you at the start of your journey are now under your own arse. Now, if you assume that when you travel a vast distance, the stars that were formerly above your head are now under your own arse, you can say, because these stars do X, Y, and Z, I've just proved that the stars that I presumed were under my own arse are actually under my own arse, now that I've travelled antipodal when I assumed I travelled antipodal. And JLB tries to fight that argument for about an hour. At the end, whether or not he was trolling in the last 10 minutes because he got it but just didn't want to seem stupid by continuing to argue the point back and forth with anti-clockwise, clockwise, non-directions, relative directions, just so it wasn't conceded fast that he just penny dropped, he had his penny drop moment during that show. But nonetheless, obfuscation aside, it was pretty blatant by the end of that show that you can't just assume you're travelling antipodal from whence you began and then make observations of the lights in the sky declaring that it proves that you've travelled antipodal in your assumption at the beginning of your journey. It doesn't work to assume your outcome. It's called begging the question. When you formulate that begging the question fallacy into, if I travel on a sphere, then I'll observe star rotation underneath my own arse, then I travel on a sphere and observe star rotation under my own arse, therefore it's under my own arse, is just a begging the question fallacy on steroids, otherwise known as an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. But takes 5 minutes to summarise the arguments and how they're formulated. Took an hour for JLB to actually get the point that he's begging the question of a model, a reification fallacy. So a whole string of them: reification fallacies, begging the question fallacies, affirming the consequent fallacies, a few others. I forget the others. Oh, burden of proof reversal fallacy, telling us what it proves and implies when you go and travel these vast distances. There was a whole string of them. It's just, I laugh because JLB likes to profess to being good at logical fallacies, and he typically isn't bad until he comes here. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Can't even define it, Nathan. Some people still say it's a force. Shout outs to Fight the Flat Earth, who still tells people now that it's a force. Einstein replaced it in 1915 with his publication on the theory of general relativity, which states that it's not a force. But Craig still tells everybody it is. Yet everybody else in science tells you it's the effects of the bending of space-time. And Craig will never, ever concede the point. So shout out to Fight the Flat Earth.
Before
I think at this point their priesthood gave them full permission to think about it whatever they want.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
That where's chocolate when you need him?
He is here.
Right here.
You should have retracted that chocolate. You let me down then.
Shout out retracted.
Yeah, that's it.
Shout out Craig.
So
anyway,
I actually want to give a shout out to that dude Mitchell from Australia. He just dropped a video about how gravity is not a force. I guess some baller came at him and was kind of triggered about his use of the words entropy and second law of thermodynamics and shit like that. So he dropped a pretty good video. It's got a couple of citations, good ones from that gravity's not a force. He's got George Mooser in there, Brian Cox, all the priests saying that it's not a force. So check it out.
So before I move on and summarise it, anybody actually got any scientific evidence of gravity?
No scientific.
They can't even come to a consensus on what the definition is, let alone prove it.
Okay, well, as rightly pointed out, it's not a force, but the current line of pseudoscience is Einsteinian, which is to say that it's the bending of a conceptual medium known as space-time. The fourth dimension. Woo! Well, you bend that fourth dimension, which is conceptual, and it gives rise to a not actual force known as gravity. And that not actual force is not forcing, holding, pushing, pulling, doing anything of any kind of force nature, because it's not a force. So first and foremost, it definitely isn't holding gas pressure without a container. But is there any evidence that you can have gas pressure without that necessary antecedent of a container to press upon? For all of those, especially people in Discord, fundamentalist religious zealots who believe the sky is a vacuum, any evidence you can have gas without a container?
No.
It's gravity. It's gravity, even though technically, according to their calculations, the presumption of what gravity should be, if it is some kind of force, which they still say it kind of is, it's a weaker force, remember? Even that doesn't work. So even in their model, they never managed to actually fix the issue. It's so silly.
Elijah's
What
flashing
model?
away. Sorry.
In other words,
hold on,
no.
one second.
You-
One second.
do you-
Go on, Elijah. I had you on mute for some reason. I don't know if you left and came back. Go ahead.
yeah, I was kind of excited because I had saw a copy of Total Recall yesterday. So, well, my girl did, so she bought it, and I sat watching it this morning, and it's just so crazy because at the very beginning, when he starts his mental journey, and this is that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he is a special agent on Mars or some shit. So the thing is that they explain, welcome to Mars. We have created domes to protect you from the vacuum outside.
No way.
Yeah. Can you not
Yeah.
remember total? You not remember Total Recall?
So they give the only reason let's jump forward to the end of the movie that they get oxygen is because the aliens have built some type of machine that heats up the core, but it still doesn't explain how the oxygen that's created from that would contain all the air anyway. So that's a contradiction, but the fact that they need a dome to breathe is not.
Yeah, you need a dome.
Mm.
Well, maybe
Martian
uh,
gravity. It's
That's only on Mars, though, right? They didn't say anything about needing a dome on
No.
Earth, right?
It's a vacuum everywhere in their model.
Yeah,
Everywhere is a
of course.
vacuum. It's Mars is just, the ground. But the air, the outside is the vacuum of space everywhere, no matter what planet you're on.
Okay, so outer space is fake. The gas we breathe here would fill the vacuum. So is there any evidence that we could have the gas pressure we are all breathing if the sky is a vacuum? I.e., there is no containment. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
No.
Dome in the example of Total Recall.
What vacuum?
Yeah, what vacuum? Yeah, what vacuum? The sky is not a vacuum. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Wait a minute, before you move on, I want to clarify something from yesterday. I asked the question is how do you explain how you can have a hole in a gas? Remember that from ozone? I want to be clear. The nature of gas, it will want to fill the available volume. So yes, gas may have holes in it per se, but a hole typically is represented in a solid material, not a gaseous material. So the gas would technically fill the hole if there was one. So technically it's not a hole. There's no such thing as a hole in a gas.
Nothing but holes. It's completely unbonded.
Also,
so it's just nothing but a particle with stuff between it. Air, gases are unbonded. So it's just a whole series of holes. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly. I just wanted to be clear. Move on.
Sure, but with the exception of dynamic systems, we're nearly there, mate. We're nearly there. With the exception of dynamic systems, because I don't want some arsehole in the comments pointing at clouds and going, there you go, that one's got a hole in it. It's like, yeah, but that's in constant flux. It's a dynamic system. So in that regard, you could have to demonstrate gas pressure gradients with dynamic systems without a container. It's, you can strap on as many factors as you like, but the first instance is having gas pressure. Then you'd have a gas pressure gradient. So saying gas pressure dynamic system gradient, it doesn't make any difference. You still need something for pressing on to have gas pressure. And the assertion that it can just hang around until it gets to the sky vacuum, nah, that ain't happening.
Yeah, holes in clouds.
Before we move on.
How do we have clouds in the first place?
Yeah, first off,
Let's just be really clear as well. The 14.7 psi that we breathe at sea level is directly next to the atmosphere, the vacuum that they tell us is space. There's nothing stopping the 14.7 from pushing the 14.6 that pushes the 14.5. All of it's pushing away from the surface of the container that the gas pressure is pushing against. There's no gradient that's permitted. You can't do it. So unless they can demonstrate this magical bit of nonsense wizardry, then it's just another fanciful story. It's a baseless assertion, and you need to ram it down their throats because they're just deniers. They're just literally science deniers.
Go on, Elijah. Go ahead. Seriously? Hello? And you've just interrupted about 3 people, and now I've left a massive gap and you're not saying a word. Seriously?
Oh, okay. Hey, sorry. Yeah. So, inversely, when they turn on this react core thing, when all of the oxygen is filling the air, as before, when you shot a hole through the glass of the dome, all of the air would rush out. Obviously, when they turned on this reactor, all of the air rushed in and crushed all the glass, and everyone who was about to die because they turned their air supply off, they all of a sudden started to breathe. Air started to rush into everybody's lungs and shit. So it's like, it's obvious.
So gas acting like gas.
Well, no, in that instance,
Going
gas
from
was
a
acting
higher
like...
pressure to a lower pressure.
Nah, in Total Recall, the gas behaves in 2 different ways. In one scene, they shoot out the dome on Mars, and the gas all expands outwards and just dissipates, leaving them with no gas. Then they turn on a reactor. He puts his stupid 2 fingers together so he's got a 3-fingered claw thing, presses this big giant dome-shaped button. The dome goes down, the reactors turn on, and all the gas is created from whatever system that it's creating it. These plungers go into the rocks and gas pours out. But does it pour out and fill the available volume like it did when it was pouring out of the dome shape? No. It clings to the ground. It rolls along like dry ice and just stays there. Doesn't dissipate into the vacuum like it did when it was coming out of a dome, but because it's coming out of the rocks, it's just going to cling to the side of the rocks when it comes to the surface. Well, no, in the same way as a piece of glass shattering in their dome example, the gas just goes out and just fills the void and dissipates, forever lost to space, getting ever and ever further apart from each molecule. Well, in the example where they release it from the ground, well, no, it all clings together like water and just sticks to the side, demolishing things as it does so, not dissipating into the sky vacuum. Oh, no. So it's just a complete contradiction in terms in that particular instance with Total Recall. It obeys the second law, and entropy increases when they shoot out the glass of a dome. It completely disobeys it and starts behaving like bloody water and sticking to the side of the rocks when it's coming out of the ground because it's part of the plot in the movie. Anyway, any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No.
Hey, Ranty.
Hey.
Hey. Anybody? Any evidence of the distance to the sun? Bundy's in the chat. I've got a number attached to this. They should just be able to rattle it off with a mere Google search.
I think they just calculate it and they accept it, Nathan. They don't need to measure it. They just accept it based on calcs.
Interesting. It's one of those questions that literally a Google search should get you the answer. Surely someone could give us a number. I'm sure there's people who've never watched the show before watching this part going, I know what the distance is.
I've got something.
64 million miles, Nathan.
Hold on. Got a contender.
64 million miles, Nathan.
64?
Yeah.
How'd you come to that number? 64?
I've just made it up.
Oh, okay.
It was calculated based on the diameter of a cream egg. And the cream egg's round, so obviously the Earth must be round.
That's an excellent logical fallacy.
No, it's based on a cream egg, Nathan. You've got to be a moron to think that a cream egg wouldn't be round.
If I was JLB, I'd say that was a false equivalence.
Oh.
It's not. It's just another stupid model. Cream egg, globe Earth, same difference. It's just a model that you make up.
Model, that was a good example. Dick Earth model.
Yeah, Dick Earth model. It's just a model. I mean, if I can make the stars match up with a dick model, then clearly the Earth's a dick, right? It's just a model, but I'm going to presuppose Earth's a dick, then make my light in the sky example, and then say that the example of the lights in the sky matches my dick model, and then the Earth's a dick.
And then when
reasonable.
I say globe model, I'm going to wonder why people think I mean hemispheres. Slightly forgetting that globe model has hemispheres.
Anyway, we could go on and on about JLB and his faux files, but there we go. Any evidence of any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of cosmology, astronomy, or astrophysics in their entire histories?
No, Dr. Danny Faulkner's degree or doctorate is not based on actual science. It's based on pseudoscience.
I like that typically we've attributed certain questions to certain personalities, if you will. So, gas pressure without a container gets attributed to Conspiracy Cats for his quote, or quotes, without the balloon there is no pressure, without the container there can be no pressure. Those quotes get attributed to him when it comes to gas pressure without a container assertions from the heliocentric side. In terms of the any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics, it's always going to get attributed to Dr. Daniel Faulkner because of his outrageous assertions that we flat earthers just go and Google search stuff when we assert that we couldn't debunk flat earth. And it's preposterous, according to Dr. Daniel Faulkner, to just go and Google search something. He knows the answers. And then when asked how can you have gas pressure, coincidentally, without a container, he went and did a little Google search and came across a little redneck retard called Hillbilly Blueballs, otherwise known as Blue Marble Science, who demonstrated gas pressure in 2 containers, with the title Gas Pressure Without a Container. So he was immediately guilty of his own claim that we're guilty of by way of projection. So Dr. Daniel Faulkner, guilty of his own claim, went out and Google searched it, found a redneck retard that had a title of a YouTube video saying gas pressure without a container, presumably didn't even watch the video. And if he did, and he says, yeah, of course I watched the video, well, why are you so stupid as to not recognise the 2 containers in the video then? So he's either stupid or just arrogant, most likely stupid.
It gets worse though. Don't forget his biggest crime for me was when he said that I know all the answers. I've never found a question I wasn't able to address. And then when he wrote his whole his whole chapter in his book about gravity and how gravity is a force, for some reason he never mentioned Einstein. You know, the inconvenient science that doesn't support gravity being a force anymore. For some reason he didn't mention him in the whole chapter of the book. Yet he's supposed to know all the answers, but never once cited the current science. I find that just unbelievable. It's like, how could you get away with that?
And last but by no means least, Nathan Thompson put the first, to my knowledge, public question to him. How can you have gas pressure without a container? And he didn't give an answer.
Yeah, sat there looking like a rabbit in between the headlights.
Can Rumpus have the curved question?
Curve question?
You hear me?
Any proof of curvature or any signs of curvature?
Yeah, we hear you, whoever said that. Has he had that question? I'm sure he's been asked that question before, yeah. Why'd you ask, Renty?
Is it okay if I change?
Because what would he say if we said, is there any proof of curvature?
He'd say curve is flat, wouldn't he?
He would. It's flat, flat, flat.
It's flat. It's flat.
We've only got a couple more questions, Babs, then we'll round out housekeeping. Unless you wanted to ask QE something anyway, didn't you? He's not here yet.
It's probably going to show up later on. I could ask you the same question too, if you want.
Okay, I'll just round out housekeeping then. Any evidence of any signs of any self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Shout out to Paul Voigt that claims that he's got it, but we're not allowed to read it because he thinks that we won't understand it. Been waiting for it for like 2 years.
Yeah, literally since 2017, we've been waiting for Paul to come back with that.
Yeah, it was about debate 90, if I remember rightly, Nathan. Maybe it was 100. Just after the Isle of Man stuff, or towards the end of it, and Paul said that the molten iron core stuff was, he's got the evidence for it, and we're like, yeah, okay, can we see it? No. Why? Because you won't understand it. All right, okay. Let us know when we're intelligent enough to understand it then.
More like 3 years. It's been 3 Christmases since then. This is the 3rd Christmas since then. I only know because I did a Christmas special around that time, which I repeated last year, and for those of you watching that may be appreciative of this, we've already recorded the Christmas specials now for this year. But nevertheless, my point is that there's been 3 Christmases. So it's probably knocking on for 3 years, if not more.
Shout out to Paul, because he's, I think, the originator of this question.
Last but by no means
the evidence
least.
of a molten iron core.
Shout out retracted.
Yeah, in terms of although it was about gas pressure without a container, the same applies to Dr. Daniel Faulkner. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics will be attributed to him. That's why that question came after that debacle with him saying, these flat earthers, they say they can't debunk the flat earth claims, but all they've really done is gone out and done a Google search. How sad are they? How'd you have gas pressure without a container, Dr. Daniel Faulkner? Total silence. Day or two later, here's my results from Google. I found a retard saying you can have it by title on a video. Anyway, any evidence of the R value, Earth radius, last but by no means least.
You've seen it on the telly.
R values on the telly?
Yeah.
R values? Earth radius values?
Pictures from space, Nath.
We've covered this. Space is fake. You can't have gas pressure without a container. The gas we breathe would fill the space. Ergo, space is fake. You can't have pictures from a fake place. It's Narnia.
Is it not real then?
No. If you've got pictures that are coming from a fake place, they're automatically fake.
But they're on the telly.
Those pictures themselves are reified R values. Because if they didn't have it, they wouldn't have a ball. So every time they show you that ball Earth, that's a reified R value right there. Begging the question in your face.
Yeah. But the pictures that are being claimed in this specific instance have come from a fake place. Outer space is fake. We couldn't have a sky vacuum as claimed in the heliocentric model, models being something we don't live on. Nevertheless, that model says the sky's a vacuum. The sky can't be a vacuum because the gas we breathe would fill it.
What vacuum?
The sky is not a vacuum.
The
Go on, Babs. Mike is all yours, Babs.
Okay. Yeah, last week you guys were talking about matter. You can't create or destroy matter. So I just wanted to know what is matter? How do you define matter? Is this thing on? Oh, no, I don't think I can
Come
hear
on, Arwin.
anybody.
Where's Arwin when you want him?
I was waiting for somebody else.
Yeah, we're here.
Stuff with physicality, physical stuff.
Oh, okay.
There you go, physical stuff.
Yeah, that's how I looked at the definition, and that's what I was
Physical
thinking when I said it. Physical substance in general, a distinction from mind or spirit. In physics, that which occurs, occupies space, possesses rest mass, especially as distinct from energy. What is energy? That's another question.
Okay. So would you consider like cells the smallest structural and functional unit of an organism to be part of matter?
Yes.
It's made up of matter.
Up of matter, okay. Have you heard of cellular mitosis or cellular apoptosis?
Yeah, mitosis is the division of cells that is really the multiplication of, but they call it division. So really you're watching cells become, say you've got 2 cells, they become 4 cells 20 minutes later, but they for some reason call that division. But to anybody with half a brain, it's clearly multiplication, and it's creation before your very eyes. You previously had 2, now you've got 4.
Nah, that's division.
Nobody
That's
did
division.
anything.
I can't let you have that. If you've got a donut and I take a knife to it in 2 axes, have I then got a multiplication of that donut? I've now got 4 donuts. Well, no.
Yeah, but in mitosis, you don't end up with 4 half cells. You end up with 4 cells, like 2 brand new ones.
Well,
And
technically,
isn't that the creation of matter right there, right before your eyes?
I
no,
completely agree.
not the creation of matter. Sorry.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
The cell takes
it
in
is.
matter from the environment, then the DNA is replicated. So they basically make a copy through the combination of proteins and all that fun stuff. And in a sense, it's duplicated. So,
Yeah,
but
but that
it's not
copy
creating
wasn't
matter.
there
You get a
before.
new cell
It's not
out of
crea-
that replication process.
Hold on, Babs. Carry on, Paul.
You're not creating new matter.
Yeah, you
The
are.
matter is in. No, you're not.
Yeah, you are. You
Okay.
previously had 2 cells, and now you've got 4. Magically,
hold
20
on.
minutes later.
Hold on. I've got to side with Paul. No. There's no new matter being created. It's being divided, like with the donut. Now, the fact that the donut is then swelling back.
Those new ones become old ones, and then they can reproduce as well in time.
But see, the thing is, you're not getting. They're taking in matter from the environment, processing it, and duplicating and replicating the DNA and the structure of the cell itself. It's not creating new matter; it's duplicating it.
Hold on, Paul. Let me just get clarity. Are you saying that cell division is a violation of the first law of thermodynamics? Is that your claim?
Me or
no, not you.
I would say it's
hold
a
on,
violation.
Anthony. Hold on. Let me just get it. I've just got to summarize it again now. Would you say that cell division is a violation of the first law of thermodynamics, Babs?
Yes, I would. Yeah, because you're creating matter, brand new matter.
I agree.
But you're not creating new matter.
Yeah, you are.
No, you're
rearranging. We've all given our positions now. Hold on, Paul. Paul, I don't need it all repeating again. Does anybody else have an opinion on this matter? So far, me and Paul have one opinion, and Babs and Anthony have another. Now, obviously, I'm just going to restate I'm right, Paul? And so is Babs and Anthony. But does anybody else have an opinion at the moment on this?
Okay, yes.
Go ahead, Elijah.
Yeah. So why is what you're thinking newly created matter? Why would you not follow that logic and then say, well, someone giving birth is creating new matter? Because someone would take your logic and create that argument.
That is their argument. That is their argument. Their argument is when
new matter.
That's their argument. When a woman plops out a baby, they've just created new matter and violated the first law. That's what they're arguing.
Yeah, they have. They definitely have created new matter by giving birth.
No, I would argue that they've just transformed
existing matter,
all sorts of things
into maintain the original matter,
different form.
You're getting rumpus. You're getting rumpus by someone who opposes you. Hold on, Anthony. Different opinions so far. We've got 3 for 3. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that flatulent unicorn just speaking? Go ahead. Anthony rumpused you because you were disagreeing with him.
Flatulent unicorn, it's your hit. Go.
I think that might have been me.
Second time this has happened today. Somebody gets interrupted or interrupts, and then you give them the mic. Total silence.
Okay, let me walk it through again. If I let's look at different perspective. If I light a fire, am I creating new matter with a smoke and carbon monoxide?
No, you're destroying matter.
No, I'm converting matter.
You can't.
Converting
What is
from
the
one substance to another.
No. We've got a fundamental misunderstanding. What is the first law, Anthony? What's the first law of thermodynamics?
Matter can neither be created nor destroyed.
So what happens when you burn a piece of wood? You're telling me it can't be burnt and destroyed? This is obviously an immediate violation of the first law, isn't it?
No, in that context, I would agree that that's neither new matter or destroying old matter. I would say that is converting.
The log's gone. It vanished. It was a log. Now it's nothing. It's dust. It's gone. The log's vanished. We had some heat in between. The heat went into the air, but let's ignore that bit where it transfers energy into a different state. But the log's gone, therefore violating the first law, right?
No, I don't agree in that context.
Oh, well, the woman plops out a baby. So that's creating new matter, right? Also a first law violation. It's not built it up with eating cakes in my wife's case.
No, I still see that as creating new matter.
No. From cake.
From cake.
Okay, so eating cake, having sex, first law violation. Gotcha.
I know, but when you look at cellular mitosis, as correctly identified by our friend here, you see literally the most basic of basic organisms. You can't get any more simple than cells. and you see one become two right before your very own eyes. No interaction with
No, that's not what you see. I don't see one, and then next to it another one appears. That would be a first law violation. I see one split and be roughly the same size, but then they grow a bit, and then maybe split again. But at one point, it's just a split down the middle from something that was one becoming two slightly smaller things.
Yeah, but if you watch it over a period of time, you end up with 15, and then 20, and then 90, and then 260, and then 5,000. Before you know it, you're inundated with them all.
Yeah,
that
let me ask you one question,
and grow,
Anthony.
split and grow,
hang on.
split and grow. You're not seeing another dot appear next to it and then combine with it, because that would violate.
That's exactly what you see.
Hold on.
That's not what you see. Go on, Paul. Sorry.
Let me ask Anthony a question. Are those cells taking in matter from the environment?
No.
What?
Interesting. That's
I boiled it down already with cake. I thought I oversimplified it enough already with cake.
I don't think the cells are taking in anything. They're self-replicating.
No cake then. No cake needed.
Yeah, but they've got a cell membrane. They've got a cell membrane that acts like a dome over a flat Earth, right? And it protects.
Wait a minute. Let's talk about that membrane for a second. That membrane has proteins and different structures on top of it to take in substances from the environment and remove substance from inside the cell, the toxicity. The only way the cell has to have substance to do any, like, why do you eat then, Anthony? Why do you eat? Because if you don't take any substance in from the environment, then you need to stop eating right now.
I'm going to look at what is the function of the cell membrane.
One last point. So you appreciate that you create quite a lot of skin throughout your lifetime. You reproduce it, you shed it, you reproduce it. Is the production of skin cells a first law violation? Replicated it didn't exist, now it does. It's grown from nothing. It was just a skin cell. One dies, another one reproduces from another skin cell. The process is completed with a new skin cell forming. Get my words out. So, but in your mind, it's not because you've had some pizza and that process is continually creating new skin cells. In that example, like when a baby's splitting cells, creating new ones, that's not a violation when it's your skin, but it is when it's a baby because it plops out, one becomes two.
Functions of the cell membrane. Cell membranes are vital for the normal functioning of all the cells in our bodies. Their main functions consist of 5 points. It says forming a continuous, highly selective barrier both around cells and intercellular compartments, allowing the control of an enclosed chemical environment important to maintain ion gradients, communication both with the extracellular and extraorganelle space, recognition, including recognition of signaling molecules, adhesion proteins, and other host cells, signal generation in response to a stimulus creating a change in membrane potential. I would say
you said it more complicated, but I said it more simply. The cell membrane is designed to allow stuff in and take stuff out.
Well, it
basically said the whole thing, just what I just said.
It says forming a continuous, highly selective barrier both around cells and intercellular compartments.
There's some things in the environment that are detrimental to the cell, and there's some things that are beneficial to the cell.
Where's Adam?
Okay. Allow the beneficial things in. And
Adam,
keep
if
the
you're
bad
watching,
things
help
out.
us, Adam.
What I'll say is, I'll agree if there's a citation that says that.
Okay, give me a second.
I'm not saying this is to be an asshole. I'm just saying that the way I see it, it's to isolate it.
It is. It's the main purpose of a cell is to contain the substance of the cell, which means if all the components of the cell where there was no cell membrane, they would basically diffuse into the surrounding environment. So the cell membrane is designed to protect the contents of the cell, but it's also designed
to be fair, Paul, this one says the cell membrane gives the cell its structure and regulates the materials that enter and leave the cell.
That's what I just said.
That does indicate that it's porous.
Do what?
That does indicate that it is porous. So does that
right? There's a certain amount of diffusion occurs water
Yeah,
will go in, certain different things will diffuse in. But there's
so then
also
back to
things
the question. Is the cell interacting with the environment? It must be, based on what I've just read.
that's what I just said.
Yeah, but Anthony read it with a lot of words that had read off an introduction to microbiology or whatever it was he was reading, which now means he can basically segue from one position to the other without anyone really noticing, which is very slick.
No,
Okay,
all right.
Yeah, how high pitched that no was. No, you say. So
if I have to expressly state to the audience that I've read new material and changed my opinion, then that's what I need to do to make it clear.
So does the creation of skin violate the first law?
The creation of skin?
Yeah,
violate
your
the
skin cells. You eat a pizza. A few weeks later, you might create a new few. Right. So those new cells aren't violating natural law, but when a baby's cell splits and creates new ones, it is violating the first law.
I would say not, based on what I've just read.
Right.
Cell
A
mitosis
form of
happens.
mitosis is
Hold on,
violating
Babs is
the
piping up because he's
level,
lost.
skin
He's
level.
lost his compadre. Go ahead, Babs.
Any form of cellular mitosis is a violation of the first law of thermodynamics.
No, it isn't. Didn't we just go through this? Weren't you listening? Have you just done a Brenda and just reasserted the claim after we've just pummeled it for the last 20 minutes?
Hey, Nathan, let's go a little
What
bit
you're
more
saying
basic.
is that what you're
Go a little
saying
bit
is
more
that
basic.
since
Hold on,
those
Paul.
new
Let him share his
cells
pain.
were created, saying is that since those new cells were created from an original cell, that it's not matter being created out of nothing. Is that what your stance is?
Energy changing state, changing form. The creation is not a new piece of energy come out of nowhere. That's not how it works. It's just changing state.
Babs, why do you eat?
Okay. That's a little bit.
Well, here, let's wait a minute. Let's slow down. Let's slow down. Your body takes in nutrients. It processes those nutrients, whether it be fat, amino acids, carbohydrates, all this stuff. It takes that. The cell takes that takes that stuff in, processes it, converts it, changes it, and produces proteins, hormones, structures for the cell, structures for the neurotransmitters, hormones. That's what the cell does. It processes the nutrients in the environment to produce different things. And part of that mitosis, part of that is to replicate. So the cell takes in nutrients, processes it, and replicates the DNA, the structures inside this own cell to be able to mitose or break down and become two other things.
Right.
It's real simple.
It's no different to a building contractor with a blueprint gathering up materials like bricks and building a house. Because there wasn't a house there and now there is, after mechanics have been put in place to move bricks around and stack them on top of each other, that's all that's happening.
To be more specific, you can't create matter out of thin air. You need precursors in order to do that.
In the same way, in my analogy, the bricks don't just magically come from nowhere. Now, a brick isn't a house. In the same way, whatever matter that was just being described by Paul in his list of proteins or sugars or acids or whatever it is you're acquiring from the outside, to have a machine process, literally, physically, like a machine, actually make that into something or cause replication. Well, that's a process that requires internal energy and energy dispersion along the way. Well, those are all just transfers of energy. Nothing's being physically created or destroyed. It's just changing. I said state, but that's the wrong word. But the matter, the energy is changing where it is. It's not dying out or coming into existence from nothing.
Well, here, let's go basic one more time. Let's do a little bit more biology. Every time you eat, protein is what your muscles are made out of. Okay, when you eat an egg, like I just ate eggs this morning, there's proteins in there. There's building blocks inside that egg that when I eat that egg, the stomach acids inside my body break those down into their more basic components, and then my cells inside my stomach and inside the rest of my body take those minerals, those basic building blocks, and turn that egg into my muscle or or any other protein that's needed in the body.
So, are we all clear? No violations of the first law of thermodynamics when things get replicated biologically.
I get it. Yep, makes a lot of sense.
Excellent question, Babs. Just give Babs a bit of kudos. Excellent question.
Can I hang on before we rule out? No, can I just clarify that this is based on actual empirical evidence rather than rhetorical theory that they base it on logic and reason?
Yeah, cake. I said it right at the beginning. I've watched it happen. Cake goes in, baby comes out, along with other liquids.
I know, but ballers would say that cake causes baby with that line of reasoning.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of what else happened. Okay, not on this show.
What I mean is it based
No,
on
no, Tony.
or is it based on logically and reasonably so that it doesn't break the rules of thermodynamics? I mean, what happens if the first rule of thermodynamics is simply to negate the effects of God creating shit?
Tony?
It doesn't negate it. It supports it for a start. How do you think it hold on. Did you just say to stop the first law negating creation? No, it supports it.
The whole it seems to me that the whole premise of science is to rule out the idea that God is the creator of all. Okay. Now, whether God is or is not is a debatable question. But my question is the law that the point that you made about eating cakes and causing growth, cell division, or whatever, is that empirically tested and proven to be true, or is it based on logic and reason and rhetoric?
No.
Here, let me help. I love this one. I'm going to use your house analogy. I'm going to put all the material that's necessary for a house on this lot. I'm going to put the nails. I'm going to put the boards. I'm going to put the bricks. I'm going to put the concrete. I'm going to put the steel rebar, and I'm going to put it in the middle of a field. All the necessary pieces are there for that house. How long will it take all the necessary pieces for that house to come together and form a house?
Well, you definitely need some donuts for the guys that are going to build the house. They're going to need energy, aren't they?
Coffee, maybe pizza a couple days a week, right?
Maybe some plans, maybe some DNA.
Yeah, maybe a blueprint. Maybe. What do you think a blueprint would be necessary? Would help.
Yeah, that'll take energy as well. You're going to need a lot of energy. Lots and lots and lots of energy. Might need fuel for the machinery, might need electricity. All sorts of energy is going to be needed.
And there's something else that's got to happen too. You got to have births, because you got to have these men that come from people to put those things together.
Damn you. You're going to hijack a point I was going to make after this, but it seems like you and I are of like mind and you're going the same place as I. So you've got to have the stuff in the first place, right, Paul?
Yeah, you've got to have the mechanism in place to process the information. So where does the mechanism come from?
No, not the mechanism, the stuff, right? So all of these processes in terms of replicating, having plans, making stuff, expelling energy into builders to make a cell in equivalence by the analogy that you're using with a house. Well, in all of those processes, to begin any of them, you needed the dirt to begin with, right? But all of the processes we watch, and based on this natural law that holds true always, that you can't destroy the energy, it just transfers. You can't create the energy, it just transfers from one thing to another. In this instance, a huge amount of energy, excavating rock, turning it into bricks, having builders build machinery to build the house. All of that energy was just transferred from one thing into an end result, a house. Yeah, and a lot of sweat in between. Anyway, heat, my point. Anyway, in all of those examples, you needed the dirt in the first place. So where did we get the dirt in the first place? The rocks, the bricks, where did it all come from in the first place? If by every single process we observe always, all we see is a transfer of energy. Well then...
Maybe it just always existed.
What do you mean always existed?
I'm just applying what, was it Earth Flattener said, or Flatzoid, or whoever, I can't remember who it was, but one of the guys claimed that maybe it just always existed.
I wanted to keep this on to the first law. No, because of the second law. Do we have to go there? We've got a constantly increasing entropy. Entropy is always going in one direction. It's increasing constantly. Well, just by implication, that means you've got a starting point. If all of the energy is constantly dissipating out, then you've got to have had a starting point for that energy to start dissipating from. Ergo, there was a beginning. But I don't, beyond that very crude, simplistic, I don't want to go through the second law when we're talking about the first law. We're talking about the creation or destruction of energy.
Okay.
But I'm only addressing the fact that you're saying that that goes against the idea that it was created in the first instance. And I'm saying, well, where'd you get the stuff from in the first instance? If the stuff that we're saying is transferring in its energy state, with the lots of examples and analogies given, where does the stuff come from if we're only ever observing the energy transferring from one place to another? Where'd you get the dirt?
The total energy in the first place.
Where'd you get the dirt? Where'd you get to have the dirt be an energy, if you will, and it being transferred in one form or another constantly? It's not being created in the same way the baby's not creating matter. It's just a transfer from cake and other things. But in the example, you've still got stuff to begin with. You've still got the materials on hand to make the cake, to have it transfer its energy from one place to another, go on its merry journey. So where do you get the
materials are in the highest state of entropy?
Where do we get the stuff in the first place?
Yeah.
But
I see.
You've got to have a beginning. That's the point. Well, if you have a beginning and you can't create or destroy energy, it must have been created.
Yeah, I agree.
And actually, I was trying to get to something too, that even though you may have the material, you may have all the pieces, you can have all the necessary components, but if you don't have a process or an instruction manual to know how to properly arrange those components, nothing will function. Like, I can have a sawmill that can process the lumber into, or the trees into lumber, but that does the mill doesn't create the house. You still need some instruction to even know how to turn the tree into the right kind of piece of wood to make the house. There's instruction. So and know the sequence. There's a sequence, number, proportion, and timing. Like, I can't put the roof on before I build the foundation. It won't work. You have to build the foundation, put the walls up, and then put the roof on. So there's an instruction process. So even the construction of a cell or anything, any process, which means in the human body or anything else, there has to be instruction, and there has to be information and intelligence.
Right. I'll summarise that just for the live audience. And to have information, you need a knower. So without a knower, there can be no information. So that's the conclusion of Paul's point in that regard. So with that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who tuned in live on the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream. I think there was a couple of people who smashed the super chat, actually. Let's shout those out while I've still got a few minutes left on this live stream before I run over. So shout out to Dale West Watson, who says, shout out to Dearth in the chat. Oh, I hope you're all on your best behaviour if the boss was around. Shout out to you, Dale West Watson, for smashing the super chat. Really appreciate your support. Also, shout out to Awaken Narrative, who says, I suppose after all of this, what really matters, in quotes, is it's still flat. Thank you very much indeed for your support, Awaken Narrative. Really appreciate it. Once again, another massive thank you to all of you who did tune in on the Nathan Oakley 1980 premium stream. And of course, a massive thank you to all of today's Discord and G Plus panels for making this live show possible. Stay tuned if you are watching on Nathan Oakley premiering stream, as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Time the cell divides, if it's not taking in new matter, it will shrink. It will get smaller and smaller and smaller. It will not function. So you have to take. Excuse me.
Unless it's actually growing.
How does it grow?
Fuck knows.
Give it stuff. Give it cake. Give it cake. Watch it grow.
Yeah, give it cake. Watch it grow. But yeah, it has to take in nutrients from the environment to grow.
Can I give an example? I plant seeds and they grow into what the code, the information, the seed is. Where did I get the seed from in the first place? So
Where'd you get
my
the dirt?
example.
Where'd you get the dirt?
Yes, exactly. So my example is this: that in the Genesis account, it talks about the seed-bearing plants having the seed within them for reproduction. So if you take an apple, for example, and you take the seed, you're going to get another apple tree if you plant it, properly. And then more apples produce more apple seeds, and there you go. So it's information. It's the information is in the seed for reproduction.
And but the seeds are taking stuff from the environment. It's taking water from the soil, nutrients from the soil, and energy from the sun to grow.
Yes, and a good example is when I put seed and one inadvertently didn't go in the right place, and the sun came and just dried it out and it didn't do anything, whereas the one that went in the ground, covered with some topsoil, and was cared for, did grow. So it had to have extra stuff that was already there.
I hadn't actually thought about it the way that it was described then by Nathan. I'd never thought of it in that way. I accepted what was said about meiosis and mitosis being creation. But when you think about it, the way Nathan put it, it makes sense that it isn't creation, but it does seem that way when you haven't thought about it deep enough. But when you go a little bit deeper, you realize actually, yeah, it is proof of creation. It's just in a different way.
It's got a word. Recreation.
I mean, it's a beautiful process because, I mean, literally everything inside the cell is duplicated. It's replicated. The DNA is copied, and a new DNA strand is built from the existing DNA strand. And then it has to build all the structure, all the internal workings, all the proteins, they have to replicate the cell membrane. It has to make enough that there's enough membrane for both, not just one, but for both. It's a beautifully designed process, and every cell in creation uses it.
Well, that's why the word "re" is in front of production. It's reproduction from that initial, original, created thing. That's it. That starts it all. But who put that there? The dirt, everything. That's a knower. That's God.
It has to be. You can't get everything from nothing, despite evolution telling you that you can.
And you can't get anything without information either. You have to have information. You have to have instruction.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I have many seeds that look very similar, but after I plant them, they produce different crop, a different type of lettuce. So the information within the seed is dedicated to that type of information only. It's only through genetics and man making, grafting and putting different branches of different trees into one trunk and having a tree that you can buy here in California that produces 3 or 4 different types of fruits from one trunk. All you did was take existing information and graft them onto a trunk and allowed it to reproduce itself.
Still an interesting conversation, though.
Well, there's no getting around it. It's information, and for information, you have to have a knower. It's not matter with no intelligence. So everyone's going to have to eventually come to that point. Well, who put it here? Who designed it all? Why is there reproduction? What a great mind God has.
I know who it was.
Who what was? Who what was?
Who created everything? I know who it was.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do.
Jesus Christ. You know, have you met him?
Yes.
Really? When did you meet him?
He's in every single page of the Bible. I meet him every time I open it up.
That's an anthropomorphization of the Bible.
He's there.
No, he isn't. That's an anthropomorphization. The book is not a man.
He is the Word.
The creator is a human being?
became a human being.
Hold on.
No, he existed before anything was created, Babs.
Hold on. I was going to say, aren't we created in his image according to the Bible?
Yes, and his image is spirit.
But he was born, which means he took on the human nature.
Jesus gave the only description of God in John chapter 4, verse 24. God is spirit. They that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Jesus, before becoming a man, was spirit. The Holy Spirit is obviously spirit. So the bodies that we have are temporal. And for the redemption of man, God had to become a man and be the substitute, so God's wrath would be on Jesus rather than on us who call upon the name of Jesus for forgiveness. It had to be a man who was perfect to atone for all men that were ever born. And only God could do that.
Go ahead, read John 1:1 through 1:3.
I'll do it by memory as best I can, but I will go look it up. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Can I just ask, why
Hold
should
on a second,
someone
he's
else?
not done yet. Hold on a second, he wasn't done yet.
He
In the
was
beginning was the Word,
same-
and the Word was with
the same-
God, and Word was God. Like I said, the Word is the creator. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Prosecution rests.
Did you hear the discussion live about the first law of thermodynamics? Quantum eraser.
Negative.
I think it would be worth doing a show
Negative.
on the first and second law of thermodynamics. What do you think?
You think? Yeah, you know what? Somebody's been telling me about not about the first law, but about the second law. Somebody was asking me to do a show on that. But so, what was the issue with the first law?
Over to you, Babs. I'm gonna go make a coffee.
Right. So last week, a discussion came up about matter and how matter can't be created or destroyed. So
It can only change form.
It can only
right?
change
That's the
form.
full law. We usually stop with matter can't be created or destroyed, but the rest of that is it can only change form. But go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
So I was under the impression that cellular mitosis, cell division, was the creation of new matter. But we discussed how you require precursors in order to do that. If the first cell didn't exist, you wouldn't be able to create the second cell because all it is just a copy of the first cell. It's not
Yeah, but where'd
matter
you get the
being created out
material?
of nothing.
Where'd you get the material to create that next cell?
That's what I just said. You need the precursors in order to create the second cell.
Right. You need the substrates from outside the cell to create the second cell. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't have anything to do. No matter is created. The substrates are already existing. It's just reformed within a cell. Right.
And what about cellular apoptosis, which is cell death? Is
Okay.
the matter changing form, or is it just totally being wiped out completely?
No, it's not. It's not destroyed. Cell death. It'll just decay, and the substrates that make up everything about that cell will just separate, decay. It's not destroyed. They still exist. They're just not in form.
What happens to those destroyed cells? Do they get excreted out of our bodies, or do they just change form? What exactly happens?
Depends on what cells you're talking about, because there's many different types of cells, right? You got skin cells, you got liver cells, you got intestinal cells.
Nathan brought up skin cells. Like, you know how we shed and flake off skin cells quite frequently?
Sure.
So what would happen to those dead skin cells? Do they just turn into dust or a different form of matter? Because they're ultimately not being destroyed, right?
not a different form of matter. They're not being destroyed. They're still made up of the same matter, right? It just changes. I don't know if changes form. I guess that would probably be for our purposes. That's good enough.
Well, it's the same thing, but
what
it's
is
no
the
longer
largest organ? What's the largest organ in the human body?
skin. It's just that it's no longer got stuff flowing to it and from it, and therefore it breaks off and flows away. But it, although it's gross, you talk about excretions. Let's keep it with horses. God, I wish Anthony wasn't here to have me doing this instead of him. So with horse excretions, so that's what, dead, useless matter to the horse. Well, yeah, but it's used to grow other new things, right? So its process continues in terms of its recreation of other stuff. But by the standards of dead skin or excretions from this horse, it's what, dead, useless? Well, no, it's just changed. It's not doing the same thing as it was when it was providing energy for the horse. That process has ended, and a new process may start or may not.
Well, and inside the body itself, if a cell dies inside the body just breaks that cell down and reuses this raw material for something else. Recycles the material.
Did somebody answer the question? Did somebody
answer John's question? The largest organ in the body is the skin. It's not in the body; it's on the exterior surface of our body.
That's a correct answer.
I said skin. I was wrong.
You did?
Yeah, I said skin and then carried on with my answer to brush it out of the way, so I
didn't
carry
hear
on
you
with my
say
point, so it didn't get rumpused. So yeah, I said skin and then carried on with my point about stuff no longer flowing to that skin, and then said, it flakes off because it's no longer got circulatory systems, it's no longer functioning correctly, whatever the reason is, but its process may continue in a different state. It might go into, the ground and become part of the fertility of the ground. There's a whole number of processes that might still befall that dead skin cell, just because its current process has come to an end. But it's just a process. And I said changing state, and I heard it from the kitchen. I was like, that was the word I was looking for. What did you say it changes? Quantum eraser.
Sorry to interrupt. Elijah in the chat wants to be unmuted. I think he wants to say something.
I just want to know what I was using the wrong word when I said the energy changes state. That's the wrong word. What was the word you used, quantum eraser? Form? Was it form?
Yeah, it just changes form. Yep.
Yeah, form. I was saying state when I meant form.
I don't think it's a big deal with the topic that you were discussing. That I think changes state. I don't know.
That's just because when I say state, I would mean in the most specific circumstances, water to gas or gas to solids. That's a change of state, right?
Oh, right. Yep.
So when you say, well, no, the energy is changing state. Well, no, it's not. It's just it's changing form.
Yeah, that's what's stated by the first law. So, yeah. All right, did we get that solved?
I think so. Babs was in agreement at the end of the live show, at least.
Who brought the? Why was this even a discussion? One I'm asking.
I brought it up. I brought it up.
Questioning the first law of thermodynamics.
With cells?
Well, with general reproduction.
Being created and destroyed.
The original assertion was when a cell replicates, it's actually creating a new cell, therefore violating the first law. It isn't.
I
was chuckling and smiling while but it's an interesting question. If you don't know, you don't know. It's not fair to smile and laugh as I was and you are now. But you know what I mean? It's a reasonable topic.
Well, I don't know about, does everyone have to take, I don't know what the Brit standards or the English standards for school, doesn't everyone have to take like at least general biology?
Yes.
So the first day or at latest the second day, right after all the admin's taken care of, books, everything, isn't the cell membrane the first thing that comes up?
Yes, it is. Yes. Comes up for us in British schooling, year 11. Used to be the first year of secondary school. But yes, it does.
Right. So, Right. So the cellular membrane is a semi-permeable membrane.
That's
Remember
correct.
that?
We covered that as well. Yes, correct.
You see where I'm going here?
But all this got covered today by Paul.
Hi.
So Paul covered that. all of it.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you, Paul.
Well, and I was going to say too, John, and I want to be clear, biological
hold on.
science
No,
right?
hold on. So Jesus is created from a miracle. That's the issue.
I think you've got about a
Jesus
10-minute.
was created. Jesus was never created.
I think you got about a 10-minute delay on your.
What do you mean he was never created?
Jesus, he always existed.
No. God always existed, but he was born in human form at some point and then called Jesus.
They're one and the same
Jesus
thing.
Christ is the creator.
They're one and the same thing.
Are you talking about
Let me just draw close to that quickly.
No.
They're
Yeah.
the same thing.
He pre-existed before his birth.
But if you explain it, but if you bake into the fact that Jesus is already God, then then we can't even discuss what I'm saying.
Your phraseology.
Didn't we just read John 1:1?
Let me just put an end to this.
Or 1:1
Your
to
phraseology is
No,
to
but
say.
that's
Let me just try and round it out quickly. Your phraseology is to say to become, as in you're describing it in a way that is a precursor to becoming this physical embodiment of what John and Paul will just say, no, they're the same thing. It's not like he's about to become this human version of God. They're one and the same thing.
He just changed form.
So what happened with Mary?
He just changed state.
What happened with Mary?
Did you like
was she
that?
pregnant?
I like that. Yeah,
Or
that's good.
I'm not understanding then.
I don't think he heard me.
It was a good joke.
I
heard
it. But what's up with Mary then?
What's up with? I don't know. What's up with Mary?
Nothing was up with
I
her.
mean,
Virgin birth.
she was pregnant, yeah?
No, nothing was up. Virgin birth.
I can't. I couldn't hear you.
I can address that. God took existing matter and made a human body.
Can you describe the birth to me, please?
She had sex.
No, that's not the birth. I know it's on your mind. Clearly, one. Definitely not the birth.
So I'm like maybe I'm missing something. Then I'm giving room that maybe I'm misunderstanding something.
What do you want us to do? Recite the nativity to you? I mean, seriously, what are you asking for?
So Jesus Christ was born at some point from a woman, yeah?
Yeah, but he pre-existed is what our point is.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're saying, he was born. So he's come out of a physical human, which means that it had to come from somewhere, and it didn't come from anywhere but supposedly himself, which wasn't a physical being. That's a miracle. That's why I said it's a miracle, because it has nothing to do with someone getting someone pregnant. And I'm saying, okay, well, that's a miracle, because as you guys described, matter can't be created nor destroyed unless you accept the story that's in the Bible as true.
I'm sorry, I'm not following.
He's saying it's a miracle. Yes, the miracle of virgin birth. Yes, okay. Yes, by our standards. But in the same way, if you're a programmer of a Sims game and you place yourself in the program, somehow you manage to digitize your consciousness and put it inside the mind of a sim, you existed before that sim. Now, I grant you that to the Sim's perspective, well, no, by our laws, that was just somebody coming out of another sim, or however the Sims create a replicant of themselves or birth another sim. Well, because the Sims have seen it come and happen that way doesn't mean that the programmer who digitized his consciousness to put inside a sim didn't pre-exist before he put his consciousness inside a sim. You get it? Yeah, but by our standards, yes, it is a miracle. And yes, if you are the creator, I'm not even a Christian. Why am I arguing this? By their standards, the creator can do what he likes.
Why isn't that okay? So here's a new question.
I just want to make my point. My exasperation wasn't for an interruption. I still haven't made my point.
Okay.
By their standards,
go ahead.
Like the programmer in my sim example, the creator sits outside of the rules. Now, to our standards, miracle. To his standards, just a bit of programming, by analogy.
Okay, I potentially see that as a wraparound. And I would ask you, why isn't your explanation the step in the regress fallacy versus when I introduce, well, why we would then call it a regress fallacy if I say, well, who created the creator? Why isn't your step the regress fallacy?
The miracle is not that God became a man. The miracle is that a virgin.
No, that's fine, but I don't think, let Nathan answer.
Repeat your question.
You want to establish what the
Hold on,
miracle
10th man.
is. The miracle is that a virgin gave birth. And it says
Triggered.
clearly in the text.
Is your name Nathan, 10th man?
He's triggered. Arwen's in a very different mood today, isn't he?
Yeah, when you come at the after show and start something, you want to finish it now? Identify and define the miracle. The miracle is not that God, who's outside of creation, can become a man. The miracle is that a virgin was used to bring forth 100% man and 100% God without intercourse with another man.
Okay.
Virgin birth. That's the
same
miracle.
difference.
No, not the same difference.
I didn't get.
Joseph.
I didn't get Elijah's question. What's a lot? I'm sorry, 10th. I think there's a little bit of a delay.
I think it's the Immaculate Conception.
No, he's asking how it's not an infinite regress to assert that you can have an immaculate conception. That's what his question is.
I'm sorry. Maybe it's me and it's early in the morning. I'm still not following.
Well, he's basically asking
In other words, if the Immaculate Conception is analogous to possibly a sim, therefore inserting himself inside of our world and us perceiving it that way, why can't that be the beginning of the regress fallacy versus when I retort okay, what about the creator?
I'm still not following.
Because one
Can somebody state it differently?
To do with the ultimate beginning,
I tried.
and the
I
other one
tried.
does. Very simple.
Saying when you have a creator, God, creating what you're saying, and I understand why he's phrasing it this way, he sees the two as separate. I said it right at the beginning, they're one and the same thing, but based on his logic that they're not, they're separate. Jesus and God are separate things, not the same, and you've got a creator creating a creator. The creator, God, creates another creator, Jesus. And he's saying, how is that not the beginning of an infinite regress fallacy? I've already addressed it right at the beginning when I said they're one and the same thing. It's not him creating himself. That isn't what's happening. He's inserting himself into a computer program that he's made by analogy with me in The Sims. So he's not creating himself. He's just inserting himself into the program. That doesn't make him creator of a creator. It's not the beginning of an infinite regress fallacy if that's what you're asking. And that's why. Because he's not creating a creator.
I've got a scripture up and I've got a definition as well whenever you get a chance.
I always thought as Jesus more as an avatar.
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, this is from Philippians 2, starting in verse 5. Having this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God something to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. Being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. This is implication that Jesus was God, the eternal God, and the word eternal means, and I got it up here too, means lasting or existing forever without end or beginning. But he took on the form of a human.
I wouldn't dispute any of these
avatar is an illustration. He's always existed, but he took on the form of a human.
Yeah.
And with that, I'll say thank you massively to all of you tuned in on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Of course, another massive thank you to all of today's Discord and G+ panels for making this after show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley. Check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!